The true origins of the Bani Israel, their exiles, the birth and fall of a nation, all still full of secrets. We are following the traces of the lost tribes of Israel and a history that has been mixed with legends for centuries. From the lands of Canaan to the palaces of Egypt, from the exile roads of Babylon to the conquests of Rome, sometimes a strong kingdom, sometimes a scattered people. What we are following is not just an old story from the past. It is the very secrets that have been chased for centuries. The journey of the Bani Israel in history is not only the adventure of a nation, but one that changed the fate of civilizations. If you are ready, we begin the dark, deep, and mysterious story of history. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notified of new videos. Music. In the late Bronze Age, the region that covers today's Palestine, in the east of the Mediterranean and the south of Syria, was called the land of Kenan. The word Kenan simply meant lowland, humble place. The people living in this area called themselves Canaanites and spoke this language. The ones living more to the north and working in sea trade were later called Phoenicians by the Greeks. But the lands in the south and inland were less developed compared to Mesopotamia, North Syria, Anatolia, and Egypt. Still, because this land was an intercontinental crossing point, it had a certain importance and a dense population. Also, the Canaanites were strongly influenced by the cultures of both Egypt and Mesopotamia, especially by Egyptian religion and lifestyle. There are different ideas about how the Yahudi people, the Bani Israel, who also spoke a Sami language, came to this region. One idea is that the Bani Israel came from the Amorites. The Amorites were a Sami people who lived in the East Mediterranean and Mesopotamia from around 2100 BC to the late 17th century BC. The ancestors of the Yehudi were a branch of the Amorites who migrated to Canaan. Another idea is that the Bani Israel came from the Hyksos. The Hyksos were a people of unknown origin, thought by some to be Amorites, and by others a different group from West Asia. Around 1700 BC, the Hyksos invaded Egypt and built a kingdom at the mouth of the Nile. Their rule was short, and by the 16th century BC, they were expelled from Egypt. Some of these expelled people settled in Kenan and became the foundation of the Yahudi people. A third and more likely idea is that the Bani Israel came from the Habiru. The Habiru were a group of people without blood ties, but joined for a common purpose. They were displaced, outcast, fallen people, often working as mercenaries with swords or being criminals and nomads. The group included different peoples from different lands. Even though they spoke different languages from their own homelands, the Habiru used Sami as their common language, and most of them were likely of Sami origin. After spending some time in Mesopotamia, they moved into Canaan during the Hyksos migrations and settled there, eventually becoming part of the Kenan culture. The ideas about the Amorites, Hyksos, or Habiru are all based on migrations that happened around the 16th century BC. The traces of this migration appear in religious texts mixed with legends. According to religious stories, Prophet Ibrahim lived in the Sumerian city of Ur. Some historians believe that he was a Habiru nomad and represented the first Hebrew migration. At that time, the Sumerian civilization was in decline and the region was open to attacks. In around 2000 BC, Ibrahim migrated with his family and tribe to Haran in northern Mesopotamia. There, he became wealthy and prosperous. At the same time, the Hatti people of Anatolia were moving south, and one of the Hyksos migrations pushed Ibrahim toward Kenan. His first stop was Shechem, where he settled. Kenan was in trouble due to Egyptian attacks and famine. Ibrahim traveled to Egypt to provide for his people. After settling there, he built political and cultural ties with the Kenan. His nephew Lut settled in the Jordan Valley. After Ibrahim's death, around 1900 BC, his son Isaac became the leader of the Hebrews. Isaac lived in different parts of Canaan and grew more connected to the land. In his old age, one of his sons, Yaqub, whose nickname was Israel, the namesake of the Bani Israel, migrated with some of his people to Haran, to his uncle. After building a family and gaining strength there, Yaqub returned to Canaan and lived near Hebron. Yaqub had many sons. One of them, Esau, fell into a trap set by his brothers and was taken to Egypt as a slave. During this time, the number of West Asians and Hyksos in the eastern Nile Delta grew. By the 18th century BC, these migrants became stronger, overthrew Egypt's 13th dynasty, and established the 14th and Hyksos-led 15th dynasties. Esau soon rose from slavery and became a vizier to a pharaoh during this period of change. His rise was remarkable. When a severe famine struck Kenan, Yaqub and some of the Bani Israel migrated to Egypt, where Esau took care of them. He settled his people in Egypt in isolation, but their good life depended on Esau. The Egyptians fought against the foreign rulers who had taken power in their land. In the mid-16th century BC, Pharaoh Amos of the 18th dynasty launched a campaign down the Nile and expelled the Hyksos to Kenan. After this victory, hard times began for the Bani Israel in Egypt. They were oppressed and enslaved. Egypt rose in power with the 18th dynasty. Between 1481 and 1425 BC, Pharaoh Thutmose III expanded Egypt's borders with campaigns into the Levant and wars against the Mitanni kingdom. During his rule, Musa from among the Bani Israel prepared his people for a great migration. According to the holy books, Musa was a prophet just like Ishaq, Yaqub, and Esau. His brother Harun helped him, and together they led the growing number of Bani Israel on a long and adventurous journey out of Egypt. But the Bani Israel could not enter Canaan right away. For many years they wandered in the deserts east of Sinai. The Amalekites, Moabites, and others did not want these strangers in their lands. When the followers of Prophet Musa were about to enter Canaan from the east instead of the south, Musa's life, full of pain and sorrow, came to an end. After his death, Yeshua became the leader. Yeshua led the Bani Israel into Canaan and guided them in battles. The first city they captured in Canaan was Jericho in 1405 BC. After that, they expanded their land with attacks to the north and south. They divided the land they believed Allah promised them among the 12 tribes of Israel, at least on paper, but it would take many years of fighting to truly control this land. Egypt still showed its power over Canaan. The pharaohs of the 19th dynasty, Seti I, Ramses II, and Merneptah, launched many campaigns into Canaan and Syria. They fought the Hittites and local Canaanite kings for control of the Levant. Fearing the strength of the Egyptian kings, the Bani Israel lived in mountain areas and hard-to-reach cities between 1370 to 150 BC. At this time, the tribes of Israel were led by many different leaders. By the early 12th century BC, a new political force appeared in Canaan. The Sea Peoples, such as the Checker and Dana, they began mass migrations that deeply affected the Mediterranean world. The Minoan civilization in Crete and the Hittites in Anatolia disappeared. Pharaoh Ramses III defeated these invaders in 1174 BC and protected Egypt. Some of these migrants, known as the Phiast people, settled on the coast of Canaan, in Gaza, Ashkelon, and Ashdod. Though the Phiast people came from the Ayan region, they soon adopted the Canaanite culture and Sami language, and the region became known as Philistine. In the first half of the 11th century BC, the Philistine people and the Ammonites in the east began to put great pressure on the Bani Israel. Wars between the peoples were constant. In one of these wars, the Bani Israel chose their first king after the efforts of their leader Samuel. In 1047 BC, Saul from the tribe of Binyamin became the first king of Bani Israel. He defended his people from enemy attacks and fought fiercely against the Philistine people. But King Saul's rule became weak after Dawood, from the tribe of Yehuda, defeated the Philistine warrior Goliath. Dawood rose as a new and strong leader. Saul wanted to remove Dawood, but he failed. After Saul died, most of the Bani Israel tribes accepted his son Ishbosheth as king. But the tribe of Yehuda wanted Dawood as their leader. Dawood won this power struggle, and around 1010 BC, all the tribes accepted him as king. The Philistine people feared the unity of Bani Israel and attacked. Dawood defeated them and also captured Jerusalem, today called Quds, from the Canaanite Jebusites. This city was at the border between the northern and southern tribes, so it was a key location. Dawood settled in the city and ruled the land from there. In the far north, he subdued the king of Hamath. He controlled Aramite regions like Zobah, Bet-Rehab, and Mara, and placed a garrison in Damascus. The regions of Geshur and Tob also came under his power. He took tribute from Moab, Edom, and Ammon, and kept pressure on the Amalekites and Philistine people. After Dawood's death around 970 BC, his son Suleiman became king. From this point, the history of Bani Israel can be clearly studied through documents. Earlier events, especially the times of Ibrahim, Ishak, Yaqub, Iseph, and Musa, may reflect the migrations of the Hyksos and Habiru into Egypt, presented in religious books as allegories. Suleiman spent most of his time on building projects and trade. He built a great temple and palace in Jerusalem. To expand trade, he extended his influence as far as the Red Sea and the Euphrates River. His wealth became so famous that it is still remembered in sayings today. Toward the end of Suleiman's reign, problems began. Heavy taxes made the tribes turn against the king. After Suleiman's death, his son Rehoboam became king, but the northern tribes refused to accept him and instead chose Jeroboam as their leader. Thus, the kingdom was divided into two, one called Israel in the north and the other Yehuda in the south. The biggest problem for the divided kingdoms came when Pharaoh Sheshank I of Egypt invaded Canaan. His large campaign caused a major economic blow to the Bani Israel kingdoms. Life in the southern kingdom of Yehuda, ruled by the house of Dawood, remained calm. But the northern kingdom of Israel became very unstable. In its 200-year history, 9 different families ruled the northern kingdom with 19 kings. 8 of them were killed or committed suicide. The long wars with the Arami people also added to the chaos. In the 8th century BC, the growing power of the Assyrians reached the Levant. Tiglath-Pileser III conquered Syria and the coastal cities of the Philistine people, then took the northern part of the kingdom of Israel. Shalmaneser V finished this task, and in 722 BC destroyed the kingdom of Israel and took its lands. Assyrian king Sargon II deported the people of Israel to different parts of the empire, except those who escaped to the southern relatives. These groups are known as the 10 lost tribes of Bani Israel. New people from other lands were brought to the area, and the new community of Samaritans was formed. The southern kingdom of Yehuda remained for a while under the pressure of big powers tied to Egypt. The final blow came from the Babylonians, who replaced the Assyrians. The Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar launched 2 campaigns against Yehuda in 597 BC and 586 BC. He captured and destroyed, ending the kingdom. Tens of thousands of Yehudi people were exiled to Babylon. Unlike the Assyrian exile, this time the Yehudi were allowed to keep their culture. Not all Yehudi were sent to Mesopotamia. Some were allowed to stay in Yehuda lands, while others escaped to nearby countries. The Assyrian and Babylonian invasions became key events that caused the Yehudi to spread across different lands. The exile did not last long. The Babylonians were defeated by the Persians. Persian king Cyrus I allowed the Yehudi to return to their land and rebuild their temple. In 537 BC, groups of Yehudi began to return home. Under Persian governors, they lived with some privileges. In 336 BC, Alexander the Great, king of Macedonia, destroyed the Persian Empire and conquered the Levant and Egypt. The area, called Philistine by the Greeks, either after Lower Assyria or after the Philistic dynasty of Egypt. After Alexander's death, after the Battle of Panium in 198 BC, the region passed under the rule of the Susids, heirs of Alexander. During this Hellenistic period, the political, religious, linguistic and cultural scene of the East Mediterranean changed deeply. Susid king Antiochus IV entered Quds in 168 BC to Hellenize the Yehudi and strengthen his control. He destroyed the temple. In response to this oppression, the Yehudi rebelled under Jonas, the son of a priest. The Maccabean revolt gained support among the Hasidim traditionalists and grew stronger. While the Susids struggled with Roman pressure and internal conflict, the revolt succeeded. In 142 BC, the Hasmonean dynasty was founded. With the death of Antiochus III in 128 BC, Susid power in the region ended and the Hasmonean dynasty grew. But their rise did not last long. The Romans arrived in 63 BC. Roman general Pompey entered Philistine and captured Quds. He reduced the Yehudi territory and tied it to Rome. In 40 BC, Philistine was briefly occupied by the Parthians. At that time, the Romans were busy with civil war and could not focus on the region. Herod, with permission from Rome, took control in 37 BC. Herod was not a true Yehudi. He was Edomian and had later converted to Judaism. He started major building and expansion projects and succeeded in these efforts. He brought back the old glory days to Yehuda. He also kept good relations with Rome and stayed loyal. After Herod died in 4 BC, Rome divided the land among his 3 sons, but some of them were later removed from power, and the region became more tightly controlled by Rome. The Yehudi people rebelled against Roman rule 3 times. 2 of these revolts happened in Philistine and had heavy costs. The revolts that started in 66 AD and 132 AD were crushed by Rome. Hundreds of thousands of Yehudi were killed, exiled, or forced to assimilate. Many fled to different parts of the world and formed Yehudi diasporas. Rome banned the remaining Yehudi from entering Quds. After the Muslims took Quds in 638, the Yehudi were free again. But this time, the presence of Islam began to put pressure on them. Philistine became both Muslim and Arab. The Yehudi population in the region slowly decreased. The Yehudi who were scattered around the world became more radical, living with the dream of one day returning to the lands they were forced to leave. Each time in history, the Yehudi had left their lands poor but returned rich. The same thing happened again in the 18th and 19th centuries. They became wealthy in the lands where they lived and gained political influence. Using this power, after World War I ended in 1918, they came to Philistine with British support. They took the lands of the Muslim people who lived there and founded their state in 1948. If history repeats itself again, maybe, as has happened many times before, the Yehudi will one day be forced to leave Philistine again, losing everything.